All right, welcome to the Podluck Podcast, a conversation podcast about the intersection of culture and faith. Today is a special episode for two reasons. One, this is a pop-up episode. So we have a schedule of topics, and from the last episode to this episode, we're going to talk about the Korean and Korean American kind of relationship. But we inserted this episode in between last minute because we felt like the topic was important and also a little bit time sensitive. And so from time to time, we're going to have these pop-up episodes that will drop. But it's also special because it is our first interview podcast. And our first guest is Pastor Daniel Park from Yorba Linda SDA Church. Say hello.
Hello, hello.
All right. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host Christopher Chong, and today our topic is KAYAMM. KAYAMM is coming up soon. Pastor DP will share with us the dates. I don't know if registration has closed or not. I'm sure he'll share with us that. Is registration open, DP?
It's still open. It's closing in 9 days.
Okay, so it's closing in 9 days, so by the time you hear this, it'll be closer to like 5 days. And so we wanted to talk about not just the program for this year and going forward, but we wanted to talk about kind of a little bit of the history, some of the larger changes that have taken place, and kind of the outlook of KAYAMM going forward. And again, because KAYAMM is happening pretty soon, we wanted this episode to come out very quickly. And so I think all three of us have history with KAYAMM in the sense of like we were involved in it either as participants, definitely as like coordinators and pastors. And so Chris, as someone who grew up on the West Coast, who was here for like the development of KAYAMM, was one of like the early batches, like what, third batch, fourth batch,
six,
close enough. Can you share with us the history of KAYAMM as you know it?
I don't know a lot because I was kind of a kid, but it started, I think, 96. And it was started by a few Korean ministry pastors. There was Pastor Yu from Napa, Pastor Song. I don't know if he was in San Diego at the time, but him and a couple other pastors were instrumental in creating a missions program. And so it started originally. It's actually, we should maybe we should.
Sorry,
our first
my dog
interview
is very verbal.
Our first interview is going great. So maybe we need to actually explain and define KAYAMM. So KAYAMM is an acronym, and it stands for Korean American Youth Adventist Missionary Movement. And so it's we're looking at 30 years now. 30 years? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Over
30 years.
Yeah.
And it was started as a missions program, a summer missions program for our Korean American Adventist youth. And so it started back in the mid-90s. And it started with, you'd go to a training, and then they would send you overseas to a mission field for like 2 months or something. And so it's been has a long history, actually, and it's gone through a lot of different changes, and a lot of different people and faces have been involved in it. Like I was saying, I was 6th batch, and then Jason, you were like,
I was 11th batch.
11th batch. And then we've also served as pastors and trainers and speakers and coordinators. And then what happened with KAYAMM is a few years later, I think somewhere in the 2000s, it developed these sub-programs where it was not just for the high school graduates and college students to go on missions. They developed a junior high and a high school program, and that was more of like revival, training, spiritual development, discipleship. And so it started with the junior high students called School of Prophets, and then eventually high school KAYAMM developed, and that was kind of like for many years we went to Mexico for kind of a toned down mission experience for high school students, and that was one that I was involved in for many years and have like super fun memories. I loved going back to Tecate, Mexico, where we had that. So yeah, it's been around for 30 years, served so many of our Korean American youth. A lot of people were impacted directly by it. I actually credit KAYAMM to being a huge part of my decision to go into ministry and my experience back in 2001. So it was for many years such a powerful ministry, and we loved being a part of it and serving it. Eventually, Jason was involved in the East Coast KAYAMM program. Jason, do you remember when that got started?
The very first year was actually the year I did International KAYAMM. So that was 2006. You
Wait, I
started
was at the first
Yes.
East Coast Junior KAYAMM.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. The first East Coast Junior KAYAMM was in Illinois.
in Chicago. That's the first time I didn't meet you. I saw you, your face from afar. Hard to miss. One of my batchmates who's from Chicago went to Chicago to start, and then I jumped in the year after in Chicago. There was a year off, and then I was told and given the program to just run, and then so the actual like East Coast KAYAMM started 2 years later in Maryland.
Yep. So that's kind of a brief history. So DP, you are here with us, and what is your role in this new version of KAYAMM?
Yeah, so starting this year, I became the associate treasurer for KAYAMM, which is now KAYAMM is under KCA.
Okay, so most of our listeners would be like, I don't know anything you
All
just
the
said
acronyms,
right now.
So yeah, the structure. Well, so we need to talk about the former structure and the system of KAYAMM, and then we can kind of share with everyone the new structure. Traditionally, KAYAMM, structurally speaking, existed under what we call Shijosa, or the Korean. Is it Korean
Adventist
Adventist
Press.
Press? Yeah, Korean Adventist
Yeah.
Press. Basically, if you go to your Korean church and there's like all those magazines and all the publications, it comes from Korean American Press, based out here in Los Angeles. And so they, I believe, existed kind of almost like a subsidiary under Korean Press.
Yes.
And so a lot of the leadership from the Korean Press held positions at KAYAMM. And like Chris said, it originally started as a Korean ministry event. And then as the English ministry grew, they started using the EM pastors as kind of the contacts and like the coordinators. Obviously, because we are more directly connected with the students who attended. The KCA, which we talked about at our podcast a couple episodes ago, is the Korean Church Association. It's like a collection, or I don't know how we described it. They represent the Korean churches in North America. And so the big significant structural change is we moved KAYAMM from the Korean Press into the KCA. And so DP, can you explain like why that's such a big deal?
I think that's significant in many ways, but if I were to kind of summarize and make it simple, structurally, I think it makes more sense to have KAYAMM come under KCA, only because that was the way it's supposed to be from the beginning. But I think because of practical reasons with finances, and I'm sure there's a lot of different things that happened 30 years ago that maybe it was easier for KAYAMM to start under Korean Adventist Press, use its logistics and banking system and whatever it may be. But now, as you guys all know, KAYAMM is mainly run by EM pastors. And of course, some of the KM pastors, they do fundraisers, and they're still they play a big role in the fundraiser aspect of it, but actual running of the program is all EM pastors. So in that sense, for us to have more autonomy and also to have more structural consistency, I think it's better to have it under KCA.
Yes, and Shijosa Korean Press, I mean, it's not a private organization because it falls under the hierarchy and the structure of the conference and such. But I mean, it is essentially kind of like a closed system. KCA is very much a public organization. There's the elections. The hierarchy, the leadership is elected, there are bylaws, there's meeting minutes, and then more importantly, MPAC, the English ministry group, is represented is represented by KCA. Also, we have membership. Chris is the vice president of it, and so it's more transparent, and there's more EM involvement, just purely from the structure of it all. So, Chris, as like the MPAC president, like how does this change, kind of, in your opinion, how KAYAMM goes?
Well, it really puts the power and decision making of KAYAMM in the hands of pastors, and I think that's significant because generally it is the pastors who are doing the work of ministry, and so it's always difficult when like you are doing the things, but then other people who are not involved in it are making decisions about what you have to do. And I think like that's true in ministry, but probably true in every industry, and probably our listeners who work in different areas of life know that, you know, if you're doing the work, you should have some say as far as the decision making. And so I think putting it in the hands of pastors, and there's also, I think there are lay leaders probably part of it. Are there?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. So it's
one.
Yeah, so having a lay perspective is also important, but so I think that's a big deal. I think it makes sense for it to be under the pastors versus the publishing company, because like that doesn't make any sense. So and by doing so, I think it kind of closes the relational gap and leadership gap between the doers of the ministry and like the decision makers. So
yeah, and I also want to emphasize that, you know, for the last 30 years, I think Korean Adventist Press, they've done a really good job of sustaining and growing KAYAMM to where it is now. And I think, just like, you know, Chris, what you just mentioned, now I think it's a different era, different season of KAYAMM, and I think it makes more sense for now at this point to be under KCA, which they agreed, and all the finances and all the decision making goes under KCA, which I think is a great transition for everybody involved.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because I think that that is something that a lot of the people within the Korean American church do not know. I know that I've received a lot of questions about how KAYAMM works, and especially after COVID, when we had a few years where we didn't really do KAYAMM, people are wondering like, what's going on with KAYAMM? Is KAYAMM happening? And I don't know how many years we skipped, but it's kind of back now. I think last year was kind of an official return of KAYAMM, because it was the programs for the junior high and high school students got started again. And like, I think our members who we do want to have ownership and investment in KAYAMM, in the EM church, I think it's important for them to know that there are some major changes, because like most people don't know, right? Like most people, they just send their kids have a great time, they grow spiritually, they go on a mission trip or whatever. But a lot of our members don't know like what's happening under the hood. And I think it's actually important for them to know that. And so I'm really glad that you're here, and maybe you can shed light on some of those questions. But, you know, I do want to like preview to our listeners, because some of them may be like, wait, when are you guys going to talk about actual KAYAMM this year? We will. And I'm thinking maybe that's like later in this episode. So, but it's important to know, at least I think it's important to know what the work that has been happening in KAYAMM to get to the place that we are. So stick with us, and then DP at the end will share with you all the exciting news about this upcoming year's program. That being said, the challenges that we've had, like, let's be honest, we've had some challenges with KAYAMM and the leadership of KAYAMM, and it went through kind of a tumultuous season for the last few years. And the skip, or like the gaps in having KAYAMM, kind of came from those tensions, of which I was a part of. I was the chair of the executive committee at the time, and a lot of the issues came from this Okay, this is where we have to start like asking for wisdom in how we talk about these things. But a difference of opinion essentially, and because we weren't able to come to agreement and consensus on things, we had to stall and we weren't able to do it, and that's why we had only like the international portion of it for 2 years when they went to Nepal and Cambodia. But there was issues as far as like the sub programs, whether we're going to do it or not. But for the people who are listening, you know that there's always some challenges working with KAYAMMs and EMs, and we've talked about that on this podcast as well. KAYAMM is a more intense version of that. I don't know if you guys would agree. It's a more intense version of that, and I was thinking the reason why is because we don't go to church together. Like when you're in a church and you have a KAYAMM and EM, like you have to see each other all the time, and so you want to be like cool and like work together. But KAYAMM is everyone separate. It's like its own organization, but you have the same kinds of issues, and we don't need to go into specifics unless we want to. But over the years, there's been this tension that we've had to work through. And I think what DP is sharing with us is like we're kind of moving past that, and there's kind of a bright future. But I don't know, would you guys agree that like maybe that's where those tensions come from, or do you agree that those tensions were there? Have you experienced it and seen it?
I think you're right. In a local church context, you see each other every week. And whether we like to admit it or not, each ministry affects the other ministry. Maybe not on an equal basis. But the other thing too is the people who were involved in the early stages of KAYAMM, for the most part, are still involved unless they're no longer with us or just unable to do it. And I think what we've seen on a local ministry level is, Korean ministry pastors are also getting younger, and there's been a shift in kind of the attitude and perspective towards ministry, where before it was very old school hierarchical. I am the lead, you're the assistant. You do what as I say. If I tell you to come to prayer meeting at 6 a.m. on Sunday, you better be there at 5:30, Whereas with the new, younger Korean pastors, it's a lot more collaborative. It's a lot more like partnership. And KAYAMM was still kind of stuck with the older pastor, older hierarchy mindset. And yeah, it really wasn't until when Chris and I were in it post-COVID, and that's kind of where like that tension happened, is because even I believe the chair of KAYAMM, he was someone who we would consider to be like a younger pastor, or at least had that younger pastor mindset of, no, we're here to collaborate, we're here to partner. And that was a clash there too. So I think it's both those things. It's just not a consistent relationship. We work together a couple months out of the year, and then old school old people mentality. But DP, can you, because we keep referring to structure and we keep referring to all these things, can you share with us a structure of KAYAMM? So the different levels of like leadership,
The layers, you want me to
the
all
layers,
the layers
because that
of
will
KAYAMM?
help
Okay.
us to understand why the changes are important. So yeah, so can you walk us through that? Like, what are the layers that make up the leadership and the planning behind the scenes element of KAYAMM?
So as of this year, the structure that we have this year, we have coordinators for each program. So junior high, high school, we have coordinators that actually run the program, recruit the small group leaders, go through all the applications and setting up the small groups. And they're the ones that actually, they're in the trenches working. And we have this committee called executive committee that they actually do the actual ministry, come up with the budget, work with La Sierra University or any of the host sites that we might have, whether it's overseas or Mexico in the future. And then we have another board that actually makes all the financial decisions, approves the budget, and also provides oversight. They take care of the audits, because we get audited by a third-party auditing company, and they take care of all of those like IRS stuff and KCA things. That's called a board. So we have the board at the top, executive committee, and then we have the coordinators. That's the
So
current structure. And then this year, we added another committee called Advisory Committee. And I think this is a team that we will advise, or that will be advising us on a couple of matters, sensitive things that we need more wisdom in. We have few individuals that are serving on the advisory committee.
Which group does the advisory committee advise? Is it all of
They
them?
advise the executive committee.
Okay. So what is like the makeup of the executive and the board? And you don't have to like name names, obviously, but like
Yeah. Executive committee, so everyone is an EM pastor, except for we call it director. He's the KCA secretary. He comes into the executive committee, but we have a team of 7 people total, and out of 7,
Okay.
6 are EM pastors.
and then what about the board?
The board, we have 3 people from KCA, the president of KCA, treasurer of KCA, and secretary of KCA. And then we have a fundraising PR person, Elder Cho from Loma Linda Korean Church, who's been, doing an excellent job for a long time. And then we have Elder O from Korean Adventist Press, who is part of the board. But we have 5 EM pastors that are also part of the board as well. So that's the makeup of the board. KCA, lay leaders, and then EM pastors.
And then what about the advisory committee? Who's on the...
Right now we have Pastor David, Pastor Robin, Pastor Isaac Kim, Chris,
Oh, okay.
and then
Me?
Joey O.
Chris. Whoa,
I'm just kidding. I knew that. I'm just kidding. I knew
whoa.
that.
I feel betrayed all of a sudden. Okay, so these are people who have somewhat extensive history with KAYAMM.
Yes.
History in the sense of like working relationship. They know. Okay. So it's a significant change. Does anyone know what the structure was like before this change? Just so we have a frame of reference as to how different it is.
Maybe Chris, you might know better.
Yeah. I mean, just to keep it really simple, like in the early days, it was all Korean ministry run with very little EM involvement and representation. And then over the years, they included more EM pastors in the executive committee, but it was, I think, not a majority. And then it moved towards like a little bit more of a majority when they put me as the chair. And so I got to select some people. But then the board level, like, I think that was mostly Korean ministry at the board level.
I don't think anyone knew who was in the board. I was part of the executive committee for 8 years. I never knew who was on the board.
I never
Okay,
knew there
yeah.
was a board until like a
Right.
couple years
So,
ago.
so there was a point, where we were like, oh, there's another, like we didn't, as the executive committee. So this is like the issue, right? We were the executive committee and we thought we were making decisions, but turns out there was another organizational body above us that we didn't even know. And it was all Korean ministry pastors. So, I mean, considering the previous structure and the current structure that DP's described, this is like a huge step, right? To see that much EM involvement at all the stages or all the levels is kind of crazy. And even at the board level, it's the majority are EM pastors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we are seeing, I mean, a significant change, at least in my opinion. I don't know if Jason thinks that or if...
I mean, we're not gonna specifically talk about this topic, but I think it's been alluded to that I thought Chris too, but apparently not, have a very complicated relationship with KAYAMM.
No, I do.
Okay, advisory committee member. But yeah, I mean, it's same as Chris. I credit KAYAMM for one of the big reasons for becoming a pastor, which is not an insignificant thing. Junior KAYAMM was a huge part of my life when I was running it for however long it was a decade, I think. And so there's a lot of myself that was given to KAYAMM, and so with all the stuff, there's so my thought is always, promises sound great when they're given, and my hope is that these are not promises; these are actual structural changes. I am more optimistic now than I was in the past, but
Maybe
yeah,
I could share two things, Jason, if
Yes.
I can, about two changes that give me hope for the future. And it's not to say that the last 30 years there was no hope. It wasn't that. I think
I don't know. There was a point where I was like, okay, there is no hope. But
no, it's been really tough because I know we touched on this briefly before, but without having that relationship on a week-to-week basis, it's hard to work together, right? Even though we felt like we had the same goal of raising missionaries, I think the execution of that vision and the goal was very different, the way it was expressed through EM pastors, the KM pastors. But the two changes that I'm seeing that I feel like that I'm thinking is moving in the right direction. Number one, the finances have completely moved over from the Korean Adventist Press as of Monday over to KCA and under KAYAMM. So that's a big change that I think is a significant change that I really credit our KM pastors and all the people that are involved in Korean Adventist Press for having the humility and for trusting us to steward, that precious donation that I feel like a lot of the grandmas and grandpas, they receive Social Security, they're on a fixed income, but they donate a lot of money towards KAYAMM because they really believe in the mission of KAYAMM. So having that funds transferred over, I think is a big change. And number two, the fact that I became the associate treasurer of KAYAMM, I think that's a huge step forward. And I'm really hoping and praying that through this change that we'll be able to grow KAYAMM even more and have like a positive impact for our Korean American youth.
I don't know if it's a Korean in me, but I hear associate and I just think, oh, assistant to the treasurer.
I am assistant, yeah.
But no, I mean, that is a big thing. To have any English ministry pastor that close to the finances is a big step.
I have access to the books. I've never had any, like, not even close to this.
Yeah. That's actually a big thing, to have access to the
thing.
books.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a level of transparency
Yes.
now that had never ever existed within KAYAMM, and that's a positive sign.
Yeah.
And,
In my mid 40s, I finally earned the trust from the KM pastors. So that's
So
great.
I mean, it's been a long road, man. It's been a long journey, and like there's been some bodies left.
I mean, I was going to say, it's littered with bodies of those who went before us, and some of them apparently have been reanimated and sent back to.
Okay, man.
I was talking about Pastor Robin, actually.
Okay,
but-
I think you're talking about me, because I was like, I'm on the advisory committee, so we don't do those things, And
yeah.
but yes,
So Pastor Robin is also part of the advisory committee and also part of the board of KAYAMM.
Oh, the board too.
Pastor Robin is on the board.
Let me clarify. I think, Chris, you asked earlier if the EM pastor is the majority of the board. We're actually 50-50.
Okay.
Half-half.
I mean,
yeah.
better than we didn't even know that there was a board to 50-50. That's
a huge
awesome.
step. Okay, so DP, can you share with us kind of what's going to happen this year? And then maybe if you can kind of share with us some plans for the next couple years.
Yes. So last year was the first time since COVID we had junior high and high school KAYAMM. And, I think Chris and Jason, you guys have been involved in junior high KAYAMM and all levels of KAYAMM, really. But for me, I only heard about how amazing junior KAYAMM was in the past. and how many kids' lives were changed and positively impacted. And that kind of spills over to the attendance to West Coast camp meetings and other programs that we offer, right? And my kids are getting to the age where, Faith and Will, Faith is in junior high, Will's in fifth grade. And I really wanted like a junior high program for my kids for selfish reasons. And that's one of the main motivating factors of junior high and high school KAYAMM being resurrected last year. We had to kind of limit the space last year because of the dorm situation at La Sierra University. But this year, we opened it up and we felt like 50 for junior high and 50 for high school was a good number to start. And so this year we're having junior high and high school KAYAMM. That's open to East Coast, West Coast, everybody from July 12th to 18th at La Sierra University. Junior high is coordinated by Pastor Isaac and Matthew Ko, and high school is led by Caitlin and King and Rock. And then I'm hoping that in the future, maybe in 2027 and beyond, we can slowly add Mexico KAYAMM to it. We can slowly maybe even separate, 9th and 10th from 11th and 12th grade high school because there's an age gap. And then I'm hoping that we can do international KAYAMM as well.
Okay, so there's a lot of things in the pipeline trying to get back to what KAYAMM was pre-COVID, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one thing that Jason, you've alluded to this in the past in previous conversations, that KAYAMM, one of the important things about KAYAMM is it serves as a leadership development for the rest of our ministries, and DP kind of touched on that as well, that when kids go through junior high and high school, they become much more engaged and involved in the faith and the work of the church, and that's kind of the pool that we can pull from for camp meetings. And so like, I mean, in spite of all the history and all the frustrations that I've had with KAYAMM, like I see that value. And so, like I'm glad that people like DP and the other pastors he's working with are working super hard to create a really great program for our kids. And that's always what it's been about. And so that's always the thing that comes up in these difficult conversations we've had in the past. Like, what about the kids? What about the kids? And we're always like, yeah, we got to do this for the kids.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's no one's getting paid for this. I don't think DP's pulling a salary from KAYAMM. I never got a salary from KAYAMM.
I heard the advisory committee is getting paid, DP. That's what I heard.
Oh yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay, I'm just kidding. No, we're not.
But this, I mean, outside of the advisory committee, selfishly, I guess, this was always done voluntarily.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do this. I'm not even just talking about like the coordinating, which is probably the most labor intensive in terms of like physical labor. But even like on the planning level, on the executive level, it's significant amount of work for no reward outside of seeing ministries grow. And that is the one thing I really enjoyed, is because there is impact on your local church if you send your kids, but it's not a one-to-one like thing. A lot of churches receive very little impact from KAYAMM, but yet the pastors are still involved. And so I agree. I mean, the leadership pipeline thing that DP talked about, that's absolutely a thing. I mean, I can only speak to the East Coast because that's what I was involved in, but there's a very like tight pipeline between East Coast Camp Meeting and East Coast KAYAMM, where essentially we would send people back and forth, and they would get training on one end, go back up, get training, come back as like a leader, go back. And yeah, the 10 years where we had it was amazing. The leaders got to see their kids essentially for 2 full weeks in a summer over multiple summers. Those relationships, life-changing, and so those are the things we look to, and we kind of wade through the excrement and difficulties to make this work. Yeah, so DP, to kind of, we're kind of winding down our conversation. What is your like involvement with KAYAMM? Like, were you ever international KAYAMM?
Yeah, I did. I led up international. I did Mexico KAYAMM, and I started actually with ninth and 10th grade with Pastor Cho. So when I first came out to West Coast, Pastor Cho was like, "Hey, do you want to help out with KAYAMM?" I was like, "Sure." And my first visit to Day Luz, I was like, "Man, this violates every health code. It's not safe, but hey, this." So I mean, but even despite all of that, I was just joking about that. But um, I I think I was more blessed at that KAYAMM, the first KAYAMM that I let out, than I think the kids did. I was really like impressed with the program, and that's what really solidified my calling in EM ministry. So that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like every generation has like their site. Like the original was like they lose with all their health violations, and then we're like nothing can be more dangerous or worse than they lose, and then Sanjang comes along, hold my
Sanjang.
Diet Coke. And so there's another generation of Kayan kids
Did you guys ever
who
go to
suffered
the
through.
other like prayer retreat center in Big Bear with the bars, the metal bars?
No, I did not go to that one.
So I always thought there's no way any place can be worse than they lose. And then we go to Sanjang, and I was like,
Yes.
there's no way we could find something that's worse than Sanjang. And we found that place, and that place, like, it was sus. Like, it was
I
really
mean,
crazy.
the way you describe it, DP, it sounds like a prison. I haven't seen
Metal
it, but the
bars.
way you described it sounds like a prison.
Yeah, metal bars, and yeah, it was. But I don't think the location was ever the attraction point for KAYAMM. I think it was the relationship
No.
building and the program. And I do feel like it's not the location. It's not sometimes not. It's not even the food or the accommodations per se. But I think it's the intentionality of KAYAMM, where junior high KAYAMM we really focus on small group and learning how to have your own personal devotions and starting a relationship with God. I think those are the things that really stand the test of time. I think for our students.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the number of people who have been impacted, even
Yeah.
just like the three of us, in really significant ways. DP, so we have a huge audience for the Podluck
Huge.
podcast.
Yes.
Huge audience, and you have an opportunity like you've never had before to talk to this many people. But on behalf of KAYAMM, what would you want to share with our audience and those people who do listen to this podcast? What do you want them to know? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel about KAYAMM?
Um, I think a lot of first gen Korean immigrants sacrifice so much for their kids, for church, to give us opportunities. And some of them are looking at KAYAMM and they're saying, we want the next generation to also follow Jesus. And they're sacrificing so much. When you look at the donation list of all the people that give money on a regular basis, it's a lot. And I was counting some donations a few weeks ago, and I was getting really emotional because I was thinking all these people that could have used this money for vacation, like thousands of dollars. They could have, I don't know, did something for themselves, but they gave it to this organization, trusting that we would use this to raise up next generation of leaders. And for me, I think that's what makes all the late night planning and all the frustrations that I get with working with all these different people, and all the hardships and challenges. I think that's what makes it worth it for me, to see not just the students' life change, but also the donors and the greater Korean American community. We come together and we donate and we pray together over this program that's been in existence since 1996. So I think for me, that's what I believe in, and that's what makes me really happy thinking about KAYAMM.
Yeah, that's awesome. Could you share with us the details once again for as KAYAMM this year's program, and then we'll head out of here.
Yes, July 12th to 18th at La Sierra University. Junior high, I believe there's only like less than 5 slots available. And for high school, there's very few slots available. So please sign up as soon as possible. If you see this, contact Pastor Jason, me, Pastor Chris. We'll be able to send you the registration link right away. Or just go to kayamm.org.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to go. So go to kayamm.org and you can
Great
register.
advising there, my friend. All right, that's it for today's podcast. We hope you learned a little about KAYAMM. We hope it piqued your interest if you have not been interested before. It's an amazing ministry, and we hope that it will grow and that it will train the next generation of leaders for our churches. A special thank you to our guest, Pastor Daniel Park, again, of Yorba Linda State Church. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend. And we hope that this will spark conversations at your local church potluck. Thank you.